take up any more of your time. Good evening. The Madison County work session for June the 1st, 2023 is in session. Mr. Byrd, would you mind doing the invocation for us, please?
Heavenly Father, please look down on the proceedings of this meeting and guide us as we make decisions concerning the welfare of our most precious asset, your children, our various communities. Instruct us to achieve compromise and always instruct us to have the well-being of every child in our education system, and bless all those who travel from this meeting to their homes and give them a protecting shield of safety as they travel from here. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Cubic.
Yes, sir. Ms. O'Bannon, the release of the audit report for 2022 fiscal year?
Yes, sir. The audit manager is here, Ms. April Purser, and she's required to present it to the public once it was released last Friday. You should have all received a copy.
Good evening.
For those of you who don't know me, my name's April Purser. I'm the audit manager of Madison County. I'm here in accordance with the provisions of Act 2006-196, which is known as the School Fiscal Accountability Act, to present the results of the audit report for fiscal year 2022. So the standards that we conducted our audit in accordance with were the generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards for the purpose of rendering an opinion on the financial statements, and to determine whether the board complied with applicable laws and regulations. We also conducted an audit of the board's federal financial assistance programs in accordance with those same standards and the requirements of Title II U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, Part 200, which is the uniform administrative requirements, which we call the uniform guidance, just in short. We issued an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion that we can issue, on the board's financial statements as of and for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2022. This means that the financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. In addition, we issued an unmodified opinion on the board's major federal financial assistance programs. This is also for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2022. The major programs that we tested this year for the federal audit were the Child Nutrition Program, the Emergency Connectivity Fund, Distance Learning, Education and Telemedicine Loans and Grant, and the Education Stabilization Fund. Report no findings in our audit report. The entire report is available on our website. Just go to allison.legislature.state.us. We have a different section now to go to find the report. So you can go to the home tab and there's an audit reports button you can click to get a copy of the report for anyone who's interested. This concludes my presentation this evening. I thank you all. I appreciate your staff and everyone. I appreciate you all and what you do very much. Thank you for that, and look forward to seeing you all next year.
Thank you, April.
Thank you.
Good job, Ms. O'Bannon.
Thank you.
Excellent work with the finance department.
Entire team, program folks as well as the finance department. It's done for, there's so many, all departments.
Yes, great job. I'd second Mr. Cubic. Takes a team and takes a good leader. So we appreciate you, Ms. O'Bannon, and all the folks all the way from the school level, central office level, knowing proper controls, how things are supposed to run properly. That takes education, awareness, and so we appreciate what you and your team do, and we appreciate our staff. So
Thank you so much. You have great support.
well done, well done.
Ms. Nikki wasn't here. She was incredible in getting everything together too for the audit. So.
Good, very good. Okay. Mr. Cubic, academic calendar.
Yes, you guys should have a copy of it in front of you. I talked with Dr. Nichols in Madison City, and they are finalizing theirs too. There's basically 3 total changes here. One of the things that came from MCEA, it was they really were concerned about having students start on July 31st, even though it's the day before, it's on a Wednesday. They really feel like that's a mental issue as far as that you're starting in July, even though it's the Wednesday before the 1st of August. And so, taking that in consideration, we slid that day into a teacher work day and actually have the kids coming back on Thursday the 1st instead of Wednesday the 31st. What that did is it pushed one day into the end, where at May 19th was a half day before, and now that May 19th is now a full day of school. And then there's the 2 half days for where graduations are, and then the teacher work day on the 22nd. The other thing that Dr. Nichols pointed out that we were talking about this afternoon was October is really, that fall break is always run by the PSAT, which is the exam for the National Merit Finalists. And it's always on a Wednesday. And it tends to run typically in the teens. It's like the beginning of the teens. Well, in 24-25, they're actually going to put it on October the 9th, which is that Wednesday. We had that slotted for October break, which was a perfect split between 9 weeks and 9 weeks for the first 9. But Ed and I were talking about it, and we both agreed that you basically have almost 8 full weeks from August to September with 1 Labor Day in there. So sliding it up to the front of October, and then it kind of gives you a nice 5-week October and early November until you hit Veterans Day. So that's a nice chunk of time for instruction. So talking with Ed, we slid it up to September 30th through October the 4th. Because October the 9th, of course, is PSAT, and we want to be in school for the PSAT so all our sophomores can take the exam.
So the 11th would be the end of the first reporting period?
Correct. I put the dates in there so that you can kind of see how they would be. Right. So it would be, it probably would, Mr. Bird would probably have an 8-week and 1 day first 9 weeks, and then we'd probably have a little bit longer, like a 9. It's a little bit over, it's about 9 week for the second. Because first semester is always shorter because it's a shorter time period from when we start until Christmas. So, but yeah, the split would still be there.
As a reminder, this last fall break, when was it this past year?
Our current one was the second. Wasn't the second week of October? But it was the first full week, which was like the 5th or 6th to the 9th or something like that, was it not? I mean, I think the week.
Okay.
So, but we let October break is really driven by PSAT, that testing. So he pointed that out. He said he should have, his people all should finalize theirs on Monday. So this is just to kind of go over it with y'all, and then we'll bring it back once I talk with Ed. You know, Huntsville's going through transition. Dr. Sutton is the interim for the time being while they transition and look for their superintendent. We've given this to them. We haven't really heard much from Huntsville City yet, but at least, you know.
And some of the rationale of why we communicate with the other systems is because we have some bleed over kids and parents. Is that, you know, going back and forth? Is that?
We try and really align our fall break and spring break with theirs, because that's really the key piece, you know, so that way when people are off, it's like, you don't want to have it like the second week in October for us and the first for them, and then parents that are, you know, have either kids in the system or vice versa. So we really try it. The start dates can be off a day or two, end dates, but really the big things are the fall and spring breaks.
Gotcha.
And you're looking at about 3 days from the time the term ends to the time report cards are issued. So the term ends on like the 10th of October, report cards be issued on the.
The report card date would be October the 10th. So the term would end, or this first semester would end on the 27th to be the last day of September. And then report cards would go out on October 10th.
Okay.
You said MCA, they're good with this, other than changing the date to August 1st from a mental perspective, just.
That was a big thing, and then they also wanted us to change, they did not like the Wednesdays being the e-learning days. They preferred them to be on Mondays and Fridays. We've learned over time that those aren't ideal times when that's actually an e-learning day for collaboration purposes and making sure that we have our people there. So, but
How did those e-learning days go from the teacher perspective? Are they satisfied with the way those flow in our schools? Are they?
The feedback that I've received is it's a whole lot better than it was before, where we were taking up time and asking them to give up time. I don't know, Daniel, Mark, have you guys heard anything from anybody as far as the learning days?
Yeah, I felt they were effective. We had better attendance, having them where we had them from a teacher standpoint. Teachers focused on the lessons. One of the things we changed this year was, in the past, we had like Google Meets throughout the day, which was true e-learning day. This time we were building packets for children to complete on the way home. Then allowed the teachers, so we were getting two purposes. Kids understanding what's real. That way we adjusted with kids having access, but that was addressed through the connectivity grant, really helped out, and kids are able to do a lot more online. So gave us more time for development and collaboration, and it really served its purpose. But as far as parent feedback, from the principal side of it, I never received any negative feedback about it.
I had one parent give some negative feedback. They actually wanted to send me a bill from members. So they actually did send me a bill. They said, since, you know, my kids at home, you need to pay me. I think they were trying to be funny, but that's the only I didn't get a lot of negative feedback other than the kids should be at school during those e-learning days. And since they're at home, you need to pay me for watching my kid. That was the feedback I got from one parent. Yeah, it's interesting. It was interesting.
I would think the effectiveness of the learning is dependent upon both the subjects being taught, the technology that's available to the teacher, but also how honest the students are when they're doing the e-learning. Frequently you'll have several phones active when you're teaching math, and everybody also gets the same answer at the same time.
Okay.
So there's not a rush to this. You know, I want to get with Ed and make sure that I'd like to make sure that us in Madison are at least for sure on board. You know, we'll involve Dr. Sutton, and we even talked about having lunch together and getting Dr. Sutton and just having a chance to go out and talk a little bit, the three of us. And so, but probably the 22nd, you know, or possibly, you know, early July. You know, I just would like to get this out so that parents can start planning. They like to plan, you know, a year in advance, especially with the fall and spring break. So that's where we're at with the calendar.
So just want to, and you know, but it's really for the 23-24. I just want to remind everybody that the 410s, this is the last summer of the 410s 2 year.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
We'll go back to regular schedule during the following summer.
Okay.
And we've shared that with everybody. We put out information about that and said, which it actually was a good thing that we did, especially with the destruction of the central office and the Career Academy.
Okay.
So it's actually helped out. So that was good. They were appreciative, and they know that, you know, we're going to be going to regular schedule from this point forward. So, especially with, you know, summer learning is pretty much, we're in school for the month of June.
Which, you know, speaking of that, I guess just with the Literacy Act and Numeracy Act, is that something that we should foresee for the foreseeable future, or is that being funded through another ESSER or anything will those funds go away for summer learning, or do we know at this point how that's going to work in the future?
That's a really good question. Right now, we're using ESSER funds for that.
The State Department is aware that school systems are using ESSER monies right now for that. So they're planning ahead with Dr. Payne, how the state can help and supplement and fund that in the future. But we don't have anything, you know, obviously there's nothing in this year's budget and next summer also we'll use ESSER money. But the ESSER money goes away September 30th, 2024.
Right.
So according to the Assistant Superintendent of Finance, or Dr. Payne, the state is looking into that, and they know that it's required indefinitely. So they know that's a huge expense for our school districts, for all school districts. So
But they're thinking about it.
they
Hadn't
took
quite.
that off because we have ESSER monies
Gotcha.
available.
So with I know there's some federal legislation talking about clawing back some COVID funds that hadn't been used, but that doesn't apply in this situation.
No, sir.
Okay.
And our people have done a really good job as far as being good stewards of our ESSER money. So we're actually getting another whole summer out of the funding, the way we've structured it, so that we're covered for next year as well.
Very good. All right. And I know it's beneficial to the students, for sure, so. All right.
The next thing is district highlights and recognitions formats. And that was something that, when we talked a little bit about it, graduation at different points, is, trying to figure out how we can have, at the regular board meetings, an opportunity for, one, showcase our students, our employees, and what's going on in our district, as well as giving you all an opportunity to share things that are going on in your districts that you may know about, that we, because you may know even more of some subtle things that we don't know in presenting those. So what we're looking at is having more of a recognition piece to our board agendas on the regular session dates, where we will have, there will be resolutions for those that have reached that level at state championship that warrants a resolution. Then we'll have the certificate piece where we actually, like do different things for our schools where they've reached a level. Resolution is, something where we want to bring them, present them where the board meeting, what may be happening that we're not aware of, that, you might know of something, or there may be even a point where you might be able to say, hey, we're aware of, we've got the High School's choir is getting ready for their Christmas concert and it's set for this date, or Sparkman Highs, or Buckhorn Highs, or Madison County Highs, or New Hope High, and just an opportunity to give you some time, not where there has to be something, but if you know of something, to just say, and we don't have to do it like District 1, District 2, we can just say district highlights, and we can just go around the room and just anything that you might be aware of. But really kind of getting back into recognizing all the things that are going on good and presenting that in a format that's a public setting. So that's what that's about. And so that's the recognition and format and district highlights.
Yeah, I think we do a pretty good job with the resolutions, especially for athletics. I like to see if we can somehow look at resolutions for some of our academic pieces. I know those aren't state championships because, it's really an athletic component, but we got some really sharp students that, whether it's a 36 on the ACT, with some other ways that we can honor some of these
Scholar Bowl teams.
the Scholar Bowl team, some of these high-achieving academic students as well. We still need to honor our athletic students, no doubt, but maybe formulating some criteria, and we can discuss it as a board and with you to make sure we highlight some of those academic successes as well. Some of those aren't state-recognized achievements from that perspective, but they are nonetheless significant achievements. When we went to the Hazel Green senior celebration, it was a lot of students that got a lot of accomplishments behind their names, and it was just incredible that I didn't know half of it. I didn't know most of it. Some of that stuff is board worthy, and so trying to come up with a structure that we can honor that as well I think would be beneficial. But we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Come up with it.
And that's why, and I really, the certificates that we're given now that Sedana and Matt have come up with in that format, they're really sharp, and they're nice cardstock, and and it still brings them, and it gives the, like the sponsor or the coach or the lead teacher or whoever is doing that is in charge of it, it gives them an opportunity to present their group, their team, whatever it is, and talk about it a little bit, which is a nice piece that I like hearing from them, because it gives them an audience for them to share about all the good things that they're doing. And that's just that, that's just the student piece. It also is a good place for us to do our stuff like our employee piece as well. One of the other things we're looking at for the future, talking about recognition and format, is we're going to separate Teacher of the Year and Support Employee of the Year. So we'll have an evening for the Teacher of the Year in the fall, and then we'll have an evening for Support Employee in the Year in the spring. So the Teacher of the Year is kind of governed by what has to be turned into the state for the state recognition. But the support employee could actually truly be, voted on by their school faculty, and it could be the employee of the year for that school for like the 20 to 23, 24 school year, and do that in the spring. I already talked with Pastor Bell, and he'd love to host both of those. So it might be just a nice night for our support employees to have their own evening, but just them, not a tack onto the teacher side.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
So that's the highlights and the recognition formats that we're looking at, changes moving forward in the next school year.
We can, yeah, we'll kind of Google update that when we get to the meeting, we have all this accomplishment the board has identified that we can call out. The board member can individually speak on it if they choose, but we can have a running list of accomplishments that the board members and, the district is aware of, and then we can just call those out in a meeting. So there's a lot of different ways that can do it, but the point remains, I agree with you. To highlight and to promote our district, it's a good thing. So,
A lot of great things going on in this district.
absolutely.
We need to share it.
Absolutely agree.
The next section is the special ed job description. Ms. Mary Stump.
I have two job descriptions that I would like for you to consider for adding positions to our salary schedule, and you should have access to these in your folders. The first one is for a school psychologist. So our school psychologist and psychometrist team are the individuals who evaluate our students when they are referred for special education eligibility and services. Students who are already eligible for services have to be reevaluated every 3 years. We have a team right now. Years ago, they were all psychometrists. Now we have a mix of school psychologists and psychometrists. And really the reason for that is because most other states don't have psychometrists anymore. I think Alabama and Mississippi are two of the last states, maybe a couple in the Midwest, but most states have school psychologists. So when we have had individuals that have come in from other states, you have school psychologists on staff now from Kentucky, Virginia, and Florida. They've come in and they have that certification, but they are working in our district under the job description of a school psychometrist. However, we can't post the positions, the vacancies, as a school psychologist. We can only post them as a psychometrist because that's the only job description we have, and we don't have the school psychologist on the salary schedule. So this job description for school psychologists is exactly the same as our job description for the psychometrist, okay? They will do the same thing. It will just allow us, hopefully, to have a larger pool of candidates. We have 3 vacancies right now for psychometrists. I've had 3 applicants. So it would be nice to have a larger pool to be able to select from. This would go on the same line on the salary schedule. It's the teacher line. That's where the psychometrists are. So it would just be added there. Same job description, same pay, same everything. It would just allow us to post for school psychologists as well as school psychometrists.
Is there a technical difference? I have no idea.
In their training,
Yes.
there is a technical difference in their training. Psychometrists can only evaluate and interpret the test results and those kinds of things. School psychologists, in other states, they're very involved in the RTI process, intervention, all those things that are what we consider on the gen ed side of things. They can provide counseling to students. That there are things that they can do with their that they're allowed to do with their certification that psychometrists are not qualified to do. However, that's not what we're asking them to do in our position. We will still be employing them under the same job description to evaluate and determine eligibility for students.
So if I'm clear on what you're saying, we already have these positions, we're just calling them the wrong thing, basically.
Basically, yes.
So we're not actually adding a position, we're just.
Really just adding a job description.
Right, we're just clarifying what the
Correct.
position is called.
Correct. And hopefully if we are able to announce the positions as a school psychologist will apply for the positions. Whereas now, when we can only announce a vacancy as a psychometrist, we may not be getting all the candidates.
Could you see a time that you will need a psychologist in a technical term and not a psychometrist? Like, can you see that there'll be a future where you may actually have a need for that and not a psychometrist?
I think that would just depend on the direction the district decides to go with that. That, like I say, a lot of other states do use them in not just the capacity of evaluating and working with special education. They really use them in the multi-tiered system of supports in the response to intervention process. And so they do have a broader scope in some other areas. So could I see that? I mean, possibly down the road. So it would also be good for that reason too, if that's the direction you take in the future.
And at some point, I guess my last question about it is, at some point, with the skills needed for a psychologist, should it be different financially from a cost standpoint? Should they be compensated more appropriately as a psychologist versus a psychometrist, or do you think they would still be the same even if they were?
I think the difference to me would be that school psychologists are typically, it's a national board certification.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think it would possibly be good to compensate them for that, possibly. But as far as the duties of the position, I think we're in line with that.
Okay.
Okay? Any other questions on that one?
It really gives Ms. Stump a lot more leeway to have
Yeah.
multiple routes for us to hire the people that she needs
Right.
to serve the children.
Right, thank you. Okay, the other one is, the other job description is for a registered behavior technician, or an RBT. So registered behavior technicians, they work one-on-one and provide direct support for our students who are behaviorally very involved and require a high level of intervention to reduce problematic behaviors and to teach more appropriate behaviors. And when I talk about behavior, I don't necessarily mean behavior like we sometimes think of behavior. This could be behavior of say, a student on the autism spectrum who is very involved and might have self-injurious behaviors and might require a very, very detailed, targeted plan, and require a lot of one-on-one work and data collection to be able to reduce those behaviors and teach more appropriate behaviors, replacement behaviors. But also our students who do require behavioral intervention plans because of problematic behaviors often require a very high level of support as well. And so these individuals, in order to be a registered behavior technician, you have to complete 40 hours of coursework. You have to be under the supervision of a board-certified behavior analyst. You have to successfully complete an initial competency test, and then you have to pass a certification exam. And then you're certified and licensed by the Behavior Analyst Certification Board, okay? And then you have to maintain that certification you have to have a certain percentage of the time that you spend providing the therapy and interventions be supervised by a board-certified behavior analyst and adhere to the Registered Behavior Technician Code of Ethics. So there's a good bit involved, and these people are highly trained individuals that provide a very detailed service for us. So we do have a couple of individuals right now that are employed with us as aides, special education aides, paraprofessionals, but they do have the RBT certification, and they work in our classrooms that primarily serve our students on the autism spectrum who are very involved. And so their services are really invaluable. I guess I would want to add to that if sometimes we have to contract these individuals to work with students. We have a contract with Huntsville Behavior Associates right now, and if we have to contract a registered behavior technician through that company, they cost us $35 an hour. So it would be well worth your consideration to add this job description and compensate them, but it would also probably be a savings in the long run. So, any questions about that?
What type of compensation are you looking at?
Oh, thank you for asking that. This would be, this position would be added to the salary schedule under the license. It's the same line for licensed interpreters of the hearing impaired, which is a similar type certification as far as what's required. So the salary schedule there, like I said, would be added to that. So it would start, a zero step is $27,392 a year. So it's right around $21 an hour.
So do you think there'd be an appetite for a lot of our aides to get their RBT?
Yes, I do, and I think that would be wonderful.
Okay.
I'm not saying that we would need to hire all our aides as
Right,
RBTs. It would be in those situations where that is the skill set that we really need. I'm not advocating that, we inundate our classrooms with those, but there are situations where we do need that level of expertise.
So is there a local training?
A lot of the training can be done online.
Okay.
But we do, as far as the supervision by the board-certified behavior analyst, you employ 3 board-certified behavior analysts full-time on staff, so they are able to provide the supervision that's needed.
So they're based out of the central office, correct? The BCBA's?
Yes,
So,
TRC.
So if the RBT is based out of a school, does that consider coverage for the scope of
Well, if I understand what you're asking me, our BCBA's, yeah, they have an office here, but they're in the schools all the
Gotcha,
time.
okay.
So it's not a difficult, like, they're in those classrooms all the time. So it's
Gotcha.
very easy to provide that supervision.
Okay.
And how many per school, or is it per student need?
It's per student need.
So at Mooresville, we had one of the we contracted with one this year, and through Ms. Stump, and she was phenomenal. I mean, so she came from Huntsville Behavioral, and so she was the 35-hour variety.
Right.
But we saw a huge difference in our kids, and she was able to actually work across 3 classrooms. She taught us a lot while she was there, but then really got to know the kids and helped us with implementation of BIPs, and was able to, she really calmed kids and show us how to do this, and I couldn't say enough good things about her, and how much it benefited us in that situation. It made the second semester much more
easier.
manageable.
Yeah.
And then she was constantly giving feedback to the behavioral therapist, and so we were able to just, it was just a real, and I think in the future, Mooresville might not need that. But for the time being, it was a crucial part of what we did.
Correct. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Stump. Sir, before we go on, there's a couple recognitions I'd like to make tonight. Of some things that you all recently were at graduation, and instead of us contracting out the videography and what you saw on the big screen and all, that was actually all done in-house by our own Carter Watkins, and did a fantastic job with that as far as the promoting. You can see the camera up there. Instead of the board and instead of us continuing to do a contracted service, we went ahead and got with Carter and Carter went ahead and we purchased the equipment that we would need for graduations and for virtual board meetings and stuff. And so now we own all the equipment, so we can do our own streaming and all. And so by the savings that we had just from this year, not paying the contracted services, we've already paid half of the cost of the equipment. So after next year's graduations, we'll be benefiting at that point. And Carter did a great job with there was a lot that went into that, and I really appreciate all his hard work for making graduations look really good on the screen. And so heard a lot of positives about the people who tuned in and saw him too. So
Yeah.
wanted to make sure he's hiding behind the petition back there. Carter, excellent job, sir. We appreciate that very much.
Very well done. I heard some good stuff, and I pulled it up, I think, in the graduations, and it was pretty cool to see the chat lighting up, people shouting out their kid or grandkid. It was pretty amazing. So well done. I second that for sure.
We had about 5,000 people watch it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Versus the 6 or 10 we normally get, so, I thought that was, looking at the data, there's 5,000 people that didn't get to attend, that got to attend.
Right.
So, one other recognition, I got this, the counselor over at Virtual sent it to me, and she was called it bragging rights. And so she wanted me to make sure that I shared that with the board. It's about the virtual school. So it says, the letter is addressed to her, and it says, thank you for participating in the 2022-23 Alabama Goes to College campaign that includes Cash for College, Alabama College Application Week, and College and Career Decision Day. Congratulations, Madison County Virtual School is the Cash for College Most Improved winner among small-sized schools in the state of Alabama for building a college-going culture by promoting the completion of the FAFSAs. And they wanted us to know that Madison County Virtual did a good job with all the FAFSAs all in the promoting of the going to college day. So they were recognized across the state as a small school.
Outstanding. That's outstanding virtual school. That's
Yeah.
great. That's great news.
With that, that's it for the informational item.
All right. So on that, the Madison County special session is now in session. Yes, for June the 1st, 2023. Sorry. All right, Mr. Cubic.
I recommend approval of the agenda dated June 1, 2023.
Second.
Have a motion and a second for the recommendation for the approval of the agenda dated June 1st, 2023. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
I recommend approval of the bids and the bid renewals as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of the bids and bid renewals as attached. Any discussion?
One thing I want to make sure everybody understands that we receive these bids before we come here. Nobody wants to bore the audience by going over each line item. We take these things seriously. And we move through it quickly because we prepare for these meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
I recommend ratification of the agreement with the Madison County Commission for paving projects as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second for the recommendation for ratification of the agreement with the Madison County Commission for paving projects as submitted. Any discussion? Aye. I'd just like to say I'm thankful for the Meridianville project that is ongoing. I hadn't had a chance to go by and look at it yet, but I have heard they're already working on that, to widening it 2 lanes on both sides, and I'm delighted, and I appreciate the county commission for being able to work with us on that.
The widening is complete.
It is complete?
The widening of it, as far as the removal of, so we're just,
Okay.
we have a gentleman out there working today. We had to relocate the sewer line that we found when we were doing some widening. And we had I believe, a water line
Okay.
we had found as well. But we've had those relocated.
You find it, when you mean find it, did you hit it, or did?
Finally back up. It was right where they marked
they have.
So, but our crew was out there and got everything taken care of. Everything's right on schedule, so everything's looking really good.
Wonderful, wonderful news, wonderful news. Okay,
And the other one is, and I appreciate Commissioner Brandon and his assistance with that, as well as Commissioner Hill and his assistance with what's happening at Madison County High School. And they're gonna be repaving that whole back lot at Madison County High, and behind the entrance to the gym, that whole back lot there. So that's what those are about, but we're making progress.
okay. Well done, well done. Okay, any further discussion? Well, I think we already voted on that one, so
We did.
We're just discussing.
That's right. I recommend approval of the April financial statements and the payment of bills as submitted.
Second.
A motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of April financial statements and payment of bills as submitted. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
I recommend approval of the contracts for services as submitted, but we do need to remove number 29.
Pull up
Yeah.
22. All right. 29 is right here.
Do we have to do a motion for the amendment?
No, he's making his part of his
Yeah,
recommendation.
he's,
I would.
Buster. All right,
Motion?
Second.
motion and second for the recommendation for approval of contracts for services, removing line item number 29 from the contract list. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I recommend approval of the personnel items and addendum as submitted.
Second.
Motion and second for the recommendation for approval of personal items and addendum as submitted. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I recommend approval of the supplemental contracts as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second for the recommendation for approval of supplemental contracts. And I believe we have some discontinuance. No, we don't have any. Supplemental contracts as submitted. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that concludes the agenda items on our special session. Mr. Brooks, I have an understanding you would like to go into an executive session?
I make a motion to go to executive session to discuss a teacher and I guess that's it.
All right, so I have a
Second.
motion,
Huh?
A personnel issue?
Yes.
Yeah.
so I have a motion and a second to go into executive session for a personnel issue. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're in executive session. This will conclude our meeting after this executive session.